Good morning and welcome to another episode of SmartFox TV. Please click like and subscribe below and the bell if you want notifications.
Monday, January 18, 2021 marks the 35th anniversary of the federal holiday and celebrated birth of Martin Luther King Jr. Mr. King, born January 15th of 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, died April 4th of 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee. He was an advanced civil rights and social justice leader through nonviolent protests. King appealed to the conscience of all Americans, thus building popular support for civil rights reform. Both Martin's father and maternal grandfather were Baptist preachers. His parents were college educated, and King's father had succeeded his father-in-law as a pastor for a Baptist church in Atlanta. The family lived in Auburn Avenue, known as Sweet Auburn, the bustling Black Wall Street. Young Martin received a solid education and grew up in a loving home. Martin Luther King also attended segregated public schools in Georgia. Graduating from high school at the age of 15, he received his bachelor's degree in 1948 from Morehouse College, a distinguished college in Atlanta, from which both his father and grandfather had graduated. Martin believed in nonviolent resistance, and it resulted in his arrest numerous of times in the 50s and 60s. For example, in 1956 with the bus boycotts, and in late October of 1960, he was arrested with 33 young people protesting the segregation at the lunch counter in Atlanta department store. And in August 28, 1963, he directed the peaceful protest of over 200,000 people to a march on Washington. In August of 1963, he had the I Have a Dream speech. 50 years ago, a great American signed the Emancipation Proclamation and came as a light of hope for African Americans without justice and ending captivity. 100 years later, Martin Luther King gave his speech. Life is still crippled by segregation and change of discrimination. Living on a lonely island of poverty, suppression, languished in the corners of society and in the exile on his own land. He brought forward that they were guaranteed unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that America had defaulted on the promissory note. He reminded Americans of the urgency, the promise of democracy, to rise from segregation against the racial injustice and poverty, and to bring a solid form of brotherhood for all of God's children. He stated that we must show dignity and discipline, which is how he stood out, and never allowing physical protests into violence. This is what makes Martin Luther King a special leader. We hold that all men are created equal. The sons of former slaves and former slave owners will one day be able to sit at the table of brotherhood. And he went on to say his famous statement, "One day my children will live in a nation that they will be judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin." In 1964, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize as the youngest man at the age of 35 and the third black man. Finally, in 1965, he had demonstrations in Selma, Alabama, which were aimed at dramatizing the need for a federal voting rights law that would provide legal support for African Americans in the South. The country was nevertheless aroused about the demonstration, resulting in the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. His final speech, April 3rd of 1968, was the I've Been to the Mountaintop. He states, "I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land." Martin Luther King, a minister that spread love and helped where people were hurting, he never stopped, even on his darkest of days. On April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated, changing the dream. Ronald Reagan signed the holiday into law in 1983 and was first observed 3 years later. Not until 2000 did all 50 states observe the holiday. 53 years after King's death, the promised land where Black people take their rightful place on earth remains elusive. The constant ringing in our ears of "I have a dream."
Strange but true facts. The inventor of the Pringles can is now buried in one. In 1966, Frederick Bauer helped Procter & Gamble create stacked chips inside a can. He died at age 89, and his family honored his wishes by burying part of his ashes in an original flavor Pringles can. Squirrels are behind most power outages in the U.S. The American Public Power Association, or APPA, credits squirrels for causing the most power outages in the U.S. They even have a tracker called the Squirrel Index, which checks how squirrels impact electricity. They found out that squirrels cause the most trouble from May to June and October to November. Stick around for a few more strange but true facts.
Hey everyone, Kim here, and thanks for joining me for some news. First and foremost, how many of you have thrown a banana peel or an apple on the ground outside? Obviously not on the cement, but maybe in a grass area, dirt area, and your thoughts there was, well, this is biodegradable, it's good for the land. Well, to my knowledge as well, I thought the same and I did the same. However, scientists say that oranges and bananas, apples, they can take up to 2 years to decompose. And in taking so long to decompose, it actually affects the wildlife in the area. Animals have such a high sense of smell, like ridiculously high sense of smell, that when you drop food on the floor in a wildlife area where they live, it's basically a beacon to come over there and eat your food. And to you, it might not seem like a problem, but if you think about it a little bit more in depth, you're taking away from these animals' natural instincts to hunt for their food. Instead, they're going to be more attracted to just waiting for you to drop something again. And animals that might otherwise not come out in the open to be around humans will start coming out into the open to be around humans, waiting for that food again. I think we all can remember the recent events at Golden Gate Park in San Francisco where raccoons and hordes of them were coming out to humans and being aggressive. Not to say that this is anything associated with food being thrown on the ground, but that is what some of the residents in that area were saying, that they were feeding the raccoons. So, to end this, think twice before throwing your food on the ground or giving food to animals in the wildlife, okay? This is Kim. Thanks for joining me for some news. Have a great rest of your day.
Welcome back to Strange but True Facts. Sunglasses were originally designed for Chinese judges to hide their facial expressions in court. Although now used to protect eyes, sunglasses were initially made with smoky quartz in the 12th century China to hide the judges' emotions when questioning witnesses. This was supposed to help them look impartial as they listened to everyone's stories. The Apollo 11 crew signed hundreds of autographs as life insurance. Since the crew had the dangerous task of flying to the moon and possibly losing their lives if things failed, they could not take out any life insurance. To make sure their families would be okay if they didn't survive, they signed hundreds of autographs that their families could sell for money. Thankfully, they made it back alive, but those signatures still sell in auctions for as much as $30,000 today. Thanks for joining us for Strange but True Facts.
Thanks for watching SmartFox TV. I'm Chris Yates.
I'm Kim.
I'm Sally.
I'm Tracy.
Until next time, stay
Stay
foxy.
foxy.